Hi, I'm Ryan Bridge, and I'm excited to host a new podcast called Bridge Talks Business with Milford, where I'll be talking about, well, business, obviously. Every week, I'll be joined by one of Milford's team of analysts, fund managers, and financial experts to cover key business events. It'll be your go-to for insights on the markets, business, and the economy, both here and overseas, as we dig a little deeper into the business week. Join me for Bridge Talks Business with Milford. Subscribe on iHeart or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. All discussions are informational only and should not be considered financial advice.
You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
2 golds and a silver. She'll join us to reflect with a few weeks of hindsight. The White Ferns. Wasn't it great to wake up this morning and hear that the White Ferns have snapped a 10-game losing streak in T20? A 58-run win over India in their opening World Cup game in the UAE. Frankie Mackay going to break it down for us after 2. Also overnight, Team New Zealand found out that their challenger for the 37th America's Cup in Barcelona will be Ineos Britannia. They've beaten Luna Rossa 7-4 in the Challenger Series final. Mark Orham's on that. And every month or so we get the benefit of the wisdom of coaching guru Wayne Goldsmith. He's going to chat to us this afternoon about end-of-season reviews and the best way to do them. Adam Peacock out of Australia in his regular slot from across the Tasman too. Live sport this afternoon, lots of it. Farah Palmer Cup Premiership Final. Waikato heavily favoured to beat Canterbury, 12:35 in Hamilton. We'll keep eyes on that for you. Bunnings MPC final round robin matches. Manawatu counties, as I mentioned, Palmerston North. Counties need to win to stay alive in the quarter-final equation. Manawatu just looking to end their season on a high. Southland, North Harbour and Invercargill, same time. Both of these games kick off at 2:05. Harbour need to win to stay alive in their quest to play in the quarterfinals. The Stags are out of contention. Heartland Championship, the final round robin matches before we find our top 4 for the Meads Cup and then the next 4 for the Lahore Cup. We've got games in Orotoria, Ashburton, Oamaru, Whitianga, Greymouth and Whanganui this afternoon. Round 2 action in the Men's and Women's National Football League, and the Breakers are in the United States. They've got the first of the 3 matches against NBA opposition, the Utah Jazz. First up, around 2 o'clock this afternoon. We'll keep eyes on that for you too. Please get involved in the show if you'd like to. A couple of ways to do that. 0800 80 10 80. We'll get you through on the phones. 9292 if you'd like to send a text or an email off to me, Jason, at newstalkzb.co.nz. 10 past midday.
Analysing every view from every angle in the sporting world. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine. Call 0800 80 1080. News Talk ZB.
The Black Habs have a new Test cricket captain.
Heading away towards the boundary. It may go for 4. The Test century. 100 of 167. He's delighted. Salutes the New Zealand players in the dressing room. Tom Latham is 100.
Having skippered New Zealand in 9 previous Test matches, Tom Latham will assume the role full-time, starting with the upcoming 3-Test tour of India and then the 3-match home series against England, which follows. Tom Latham is with us. Congratulations on the appointment, Tom. How did the captaincy change play out?
Thank you very much. It's obviously an honour and a privilege, I guess, to be given the opportunity to lead the team. As you said, I've obviously done in the past before, and I guess after each tour, each series, things are evaluated with where things are at, and obviously the decision came to me. Decided to step away from the role, and it's obviously nice to be asked to do it, and certainly looking forward to the opportunity.
Did you know a change was in the wind?
No, I didn't. No, I guess, as I said, it's one of those things that after each series and each tour, steady and Tim evaluate things and where things are at and all that sort of thing. And obviously the decision was made, and we're in the position we are now. So obviously it came as a little bit of a surprise, but obviously looking forward to you have all the different emotions when you get appointed with something like that, and certainly looking forward to what's coming up ahead.
Is this something you've aspired to?
Well, as I said, I've done 9 Test matches in the past and done various one-days and T20s along the road, and I guess from my point of view, it's always been a fill-in type role. So this opportunity is slightly different than what I've been used to, and I think for me it's about trying to push the team forward as much as I can, and certainly I think once you do it once, you get a little bit of a bug for it, and I think for me it's always been about trying to push the team forward and support whoever's doing it at the time, whether it be Kane or whether it be Tim. So, it's obviously nice to be in this position now.
Did you want the job when Kane Williamson stepped down in 2022?
Look, it was a different situation, and obviously decided to go with Timmy. But in all honesty, it's probably worked out well in terms of the situation we were in there. And I guess to me, it's just about trying to support again whoever was the captain, and certainly gave my full support to Timmy. For the last 2 years. So again, I was a little bit surprised at the time, but I can certainly see the reasons why they went with Timmy.
And obviously Tim has been a part of this Black Cap setup for a long time, as have you, and he will continue to be, I'm sure, in Test cricket. Do you perceive any potential awkwardness around the change of captaincy? Have you thought about how that might be negotiated?
Absolutely not. No awkwardness at all. Have been in touch with Timmy throughout the last few days, and I just sort of want to congratulate him on the role that he's done over the last 2 years. I think he's a valued member of our team, a senior guy, and someone that has immense amount of experience, and I've certainly enjoyed playing under him, and I know a lot of the guys have as well, but no, there'll certainly be no awkwardness there at all. I know he's willing to help me, and I'll certainly be leaning on him at times to, for his experience in situations too.
So as we've both mentioned, you've done the job previously, but now it's your gig full-time. How will that change your approach to captaining the Test side?
Not sure at the stage. I guess you always look at ways you want to push the team forward, whether it's you're captain or not captain. But obviously now being in this situation, you have a little bit, I guess, more control. But I think to me it's about trying to empower guys to do their roles as best they can, and let them go out with freedom and play their roles as best they can. Because I think when guys do that, they play with freedom without fear. Results tend to. Or I guess you play in a way that you want to, and results sort of take care of himself along the road. But I think from my point of view, I'm looking forward to getting stuck in against India, and again, it's not a massive change. I've done it before, and guys know sort of how I tick. So we'll hopefully hit the ground running. So
you don't feel any need to, stamp your mark on this team to immediately be a certain type of captain of this side?
I wouldn't say straight away. I certainly don't want to come in and start changing things left, right and centre. And, as a Test side, we do a lot of good things. I'm sure there'll be things that we want to improve, like I guess any team does throughout the road. But, I guess we'll evaluate that and hopefully adapt as quick as we can on the road. And if need be, we'll obviously make those changes, and if any changes at all.
How important a part of Test captaincy is team selection?
Obviously, in all formats, it's important. I think if you look as a whole, our Test side's been reasonably settled over a long period of time. I think the consistency of selection has certainly helped the team in terms of where we've got to in the past, not just over recent times, but times where we've been really successful. And I think that consistency is important to give guys opportunities to perform their roles as best they can. And we certainly know how fickle cricket can be. We obviously play in some tough conditions at home, but also away. So I think for me, it's probably more the consistency piece, is making sure you give the guys opportunities to do the roles that they've been selected for.
In the recent Sri Lankan series, it was two seamers, two specialist seamers picked for both Test matches. Do you feel like that's likely to be the case in India as well?
We'll obviously have to wait till we get over there. But I think if you look over recent series, it tends to sort of be that make-up in terms of seamers versus spinners. I think we're lucky we've got plenty of all-rounders in that top six, which certainly makes your resource a little bit better in terms of having a few more different options. So, I think obviously hard to know to say from here. I'd say potentially that the two seamers is obviously a high chance of that, depending on what we get in terms of pitch-wise. And
India are arguably a bigger challenge even than Sri Lanka. Do you feel there's any need to rebuild confidence in the team after the series defeat in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, obviously results didn't quite go our way. I think if you look at that first test, we were pretty close. I think it was only 60 runs that we lost by. So in Test cricket, that's a reasonably small margin. And we did play some good cricket throughout that game, and obviously take away the first innings with the bat. In the second test, I actually thought we played reasonably well in that second innings to get over 350 in a third, fourth innings is obviously a decent effort as well. So, yeah, obviously a different challenge, a big challenge, which I'm sure everyone will be looking forward to. There's no better time to test yourself against, the best team in their own conditions in India, and 3 pretty iconic venues. So, I'm sure the guys will be resting up this week and hopefully looking forward to getting into things next week.
When you find yourself in a situation like the second test when Sri Lanka were batting, they're piling on runs, breakthroughs are hard to come by, what is the best strategy as a captain in that situation?
Yeah, it's certainly hard. I think you go through many different ideas, and everything you throw at them, they sort of tend to come up with the answers. So, it is really hard in that situation in terms of, know what you do, and we haven't been in that situation a lot before, and credit to the way that Sri Lanka played. They, played outstandingly well, and that's sort of hard to know. I guess you lean on those experiences that you've had before, and I guess you're just trying to do anything to get a wicket. You're trying to go through different options, different change bowls at different ends, different field placings. Just trying to, I guess, do something to break the partnership, because if you do that, then things tend to happen quite quickly in those parts of the world where you can get one, you can get a couple quickly. So, but hopefully we're not in that situation.
Yeah, and with the bat, you're one of our best players of spin bowling, and it's likely, obviously, that you're going to have to face quite a bit of it in India, as you did in Sri Lanka. What are the real keys to playing spin well, particularly in the subcontinent?
It's having your plan and trying to stick to it for long periods. I think we've seen, different teams in recent times turn there, do it differently. Like England, they tend to be a little bit more aggressive, whereas, we've obviously have players that like to bat long periods of time and try wear teams down. And I think it's been able to stick to a plan as best you can. I think from a spin point of view, sometimes it's not the ball that actually turns that gets all the wickets. It's the one that slides on. Tends to be the danger ball. But obviously they've got some quality spinners, but they've also got some fantastic fast bowlers as well. So we're certainly going to be tested, that's for sure. But I know the guys will be looking forward to it. And
I don't know whether this is a myth or not, but you often hear about captaincy affecting a player's performance. What strategies can you use to make sure captaincy doesn't affect the way you bat? Again, I think it's being able to stick to your plan as best you can. I think, it's been able to switch between a captain and also switching between a batsman, which is, really important. So, obviously when I bat, it's about me and trying to, I guess, nail my things as best I can and not worrying too much about what's out of your control. And as I said, I've done it in the past, done it before, so I'll certainly be leaning back on those experiences and going from there. Busy time ahead for you, Tom. 3 tests against India, 3 back home against England, which we're very much looking forward to. Congratulations again on being named our new Test captain, and thanks for the chat this afternoon. No worries. Thanks very much. No, thank you, Tom. Tom Latham there, Black Caps Test skipper, not on a temporary basis anymore, not on a fill-in basis. He is the new Test skipper moving forward. Keen to hear from you now on this and a couple of issues wrapped around it. 0800 80 1080. Lines are open for your thoughts, or the text as well, 9292. Your thoughts on the captaincy change. Is Tom Latham the right man to move us forward? And what do you see now in the future of Tim Southee as an international cricketer? Reading between the lines of Tom Latham's diplomacy there, it's clear he was disappointed to be overlooked the first time. When Kane Williamson relinquished the Test captaincy at the back end of 2022, I think most people thought Tom Latham was the obvious choice, having done it before and being a guy who, in all conditions, in all countries, in every Test match, is pretty much a first-choice player. If he's fit, he plays. Tom Latham, he's become one of our best Test openers. And yes, he's gone through a little bit of a a rocky time recently with the bat as well, but I think the fact remains that he is part of our best Test 11. The change of Test skipper had to happen, obviously. And whether it was the captaincy that affected his performances or not, and I actually think it did play a big part, the fact is Tim Southee wasn't doing enough to guarantee his place in the team. And that becomes a real issue when you are captain, even more so on the subcontinent. And I've said this a lot of times in the last couple of weeks. More often than not, you play just two seamers in Test matches in the subcontinent. Your quickest and your best. And Tim Southee isn't either of those two things at the moment. The omission of Matt Henry can only be explained by Tim Southee being captain. Because the last time Matt Henry bowled in Test cricket was against Australia at the end of our home summer. He took 5 for 70 and 3 for 36 in the first Test, 7 for 67 and 2 for 94 in the second, 17 wickets at 15s, easily our best bowler, and probably the best across both sides in the series. Tim Southee, 4 wickets in those two Tests at an average of 61. And Matt Henry also contributed some handy runs, averaging over 25, Tim Southee 8.5. But it was Matt Henry who was left out of these Sri Lankan Tests because Tim Southee was captain. Imagine taking 7 for 67 against Australia and then being dropped for the next Test, albeit in very different conditions. Well, thankfully, that will be one of the first things put right, you'd have to think, by this captaincy change. It'll ensure that Matt Henry plays against India. The question now is whether Tim Southee even goes on that tour. And a large part of me thinks he shouldn't. He should stay back here, get out of the limelight, freshen up, and get ready to play the 3 Tests against England before Christmas. Because he should definitely play in those Tests, Tim Southee. We'll have a seam-heavy attack, and he is still part of a 4-pronged pace attack, our best 4. Matt Henry, obviously, Will O'Rourke, Tim Southee, and probably Ben Sears. I don't know the current status of Kyle Jamieson. Hopefully we'll see him again this summer. But Tim Southee plays those Test matches. And I really think that might be quite a good way to bring the curtain down on what has been, by every measure pretty much, a terrific career. 382 Test wickets. Only Sir Richard Hadley has more than that for us. Wouldn't it be great to see Tim Southee join that very exclusive 400 Test wicket club? 18 more wickets might be a stretch in 3 Test matches, but who knows? Without having to worry about anything else other than bowling, and on reasonably seam-friendly wickets at Hagley, the Basin, Seddon Park, he could do it. I honestly think relinquishing the captaincy is a good thing for Tim Southee. He is one of our cricketing greats. He deserves to go out on top. And the longer the captaincy saga played out, the more his legacy was being affected. Now he's got a chance for a swan song at home and to enjoy a fitting end to a great career.
Weekend Sport.
0800 80 10 80 12:26. We're back with your calls right after this.
Morning, afternoon, Piney. How are you, mate? The migraine from this last Sri Lanka tour gone away yet, or is it still there?
No, it's all right. Look, I'm glad they've made the change. You know, if there'd been no change and we were contemplating the prospect of playing India over there in 3 Test matches without our best seam bowler as part of the 11, I would have had probably more of a headache. I actually am now looking more forward to the Indian Test matches, daunting as they may be.
The change had to be done before we went on this tour, Piney. Like, it was pretty obvious that Southee shouldn't have been playing because you were only going to pick 2 bowlers, O'Rourke or Sears and Matt Henry. I just find it so baffling that Matt Henry was carrying the drinks in these last 2 Test series. It was just blatantly obvious that Southee just didn't want to drop himself because he wanted to play. But, I mean, really, the stats don't lie, Piney. And Southee, after that 100th crisis, he should have, I would have thought he probably should have just said, hey, I'm retiring now. Thanks very much. See you later. Because it's a no-brainer, Piney, isn't it?
Yeah, on numbers alone, Rich, it's a no-brainer with Matt Henry and Tim Southee. You're right, and like if you hover above this, take the personalities out of it, the captain should never be thinking about dropping themselves. But I think it must have been clear to Tim Southee, even privately, that he wasn't contributing enough in his core role as a seam bowler to justify a place in the team when, as you say, we're only going to play two seam bowlers on the subcontinent. And so I think that's obviously occurred to him, or he's come to that realisation. So I think he's made a good decision here.
The thing I've got a couple of points here, finding if I've got the time, is that
of course,
when it comes to with this tour, why have we come home? We should have gone straight to Sri Lanka, go to India, and start preparing. I mean, when's this test tour start? Less than 2 weeks, and we've come home for a week, and we're going to be flying out, later this week? We should be going over there and practicing after that poor performance we had in Sri Lanka. What are we doing? 3 tests, and yet we've come home, you know?
I totally agree. Particularly given the fact, and not that they would have been able to foresee this, particularly given the fact the Afghanistan test was completely washed out. So you lose that as preparation for the Sri Lankan tests. And you're right, Rich, the first test against India starts on the 16th of October. It's the 5th today, so it's only 11 days away. Yeah, I reckon get over there, play a couple of 4-day games. Get yourself used to it, right?
Yeah, and it's one also baffling, Piney, that all wickets of Ellesse Patel have been away from home. That clearly highlights the problem, that we've got to stop this kind of mentality, that we start picking a spinner and we play them on any pitch. I don't care if it's green and it looks like Kermit the Frog, he plays. Because we're so reliant on, we'll just stick to one-dimensional bowling, but things have changed. No wonder we don't have, when you go look at Ellesse Patel, he's come out after that last series he played in India, he's hardly played a test. He was dropped after taking 10 wickets. And it's just so frustrating that we just keep picking a spinner based on his batting record and what he's going to provide in runs at number 8. Pick a spinner. Go look at Australia with Nathan Lyon. You know, we just never, we've got to change that mindset. I'm sick of this conservative approach. With the amount of tests we play and a nation our size, we've got to be a bit more aggressive. We've got to start making those changes. You know?
I totally agree. I totally agree on the spinner thing. You're so right. Nathan Lyon, after Pat Cummins, is probably the first guy they write down. He plays every test, as you say, even if the pitch looks like Kermit the Frog, in your words, which is a great description. He plays. He got 10 wickets in the Basin last summer. He got 10 for 108. Yeah. You know, I mean, in meantime, here's us not playing a spinner. I don't think we played a spinner in that first test. I'm just going to check. Ravindra bowled 7 overs. Glenn Phillips got 5 for in the second innings. Remember that at the Basin, and an accidental test spinner. So you're so right, and that stat about Ajaz is just so glaring. What do they say? If it seems, it spins.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, you know, we saw the captaincy change was going to come, but I just think there's a lot that rides on Gary Stead here. Southee cannot just cop all the blame. I think Gary Stead and his conservative approach is what's costing us games. We pick a spinner at any test we play, because you go look at Australia, England trying to do it because they want a point of difference. But no doubt when we come out here, we'll pick 4 seamers and we'll have Glenn Phillips. I mean, honestly, Pony, things are going to change, mate. Oh, it's so frustrating. I've got the migraine coming back now.
I gotta say, we better draw a line under this particular conversation, mate. Let's chat again. Let's chat again when the Indian tests roll around.
I look forward to it, but with the lack of preparation, Piney, I don't know. As Ian Smith said, he's going to be going over there with glass half empty, and I think that's the same with me.
All right, mate. Good to chat as always. Appreciate your call. Let's chat again in a couple of weeks or so. 0800 80 1080 is our number. Hello, Chris.
G'day, Jason. Look, this handling by New Zealand cricket, the captaincy that you're discussing at the moment, this dates back to 2022. I remember watching that press conference when they stood Kane Williamson down. Now he stood down voluntarily. Just make that clear. Are you sure about that?
Kane Williamson, yeah, he relinquished the Test captaincy.
Yeah, well, he looked a bit perplexed. Anyway, okay, fair enough. And so I agree with Simon all the time. He said Kane Williamson needs to be playing Test cricket for New Zealand till he's 40, hopefully. And the thing is, it should have been Latham then. I'm not a big Latham fan because I think he's a great bloke, good opening Test batsman, but he's not an aggressive captain. He's very, very conservative.
Yeah, I would say that. Yes, I would say that's fair.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But who else would you? But the problem was, who else in that team could take the reins? Conway. Who's had first class captaincy experience, Jason? Out of say Conway and Mitchell and Co. Have they done it?
I don't. Not for a prolonged period, Chris. Okay, you work your way down. Conway, no. Mitchell, no. Phillips, no. Blundell, no. Santner, a little bit, maybe. And then you're getting into the boulders where, once again, you're fraught with difficulty around selection, etc. So it's really Latham or nobody at the moment. I think Glenn Phillips moving forward would be a very good choice, because he's got a bit about him, a bit of innovation, a bit of, up in your grill type mentality. I think he reminds me a little bit of Brendan McCullum in that way. I think Glenn Phillips would be a really good choice moving forward.
I'd agree with you there, because he's only 26 and he's now an established Test cricketer. I mean, the only guy I'll say, you said bowlers don't make good Test captains. Well, the difference there is Pat Cummins, but look at the armoury Cummins has got, batsmen and bowlers. Anyone could captain that team.
Well, I think also he has justified his place because he continues to perform. And that's, I think, the issue here, Chris, is that because Tim Southee wasn't getting those wickets, wasn't performing, his place in the side immediately comes into question. And you can't have that when you are the skipper of the side. You have to always justify your place first. This is the whole reason why Sam Cane's been so polarising as All Blacks captain, because there was a wide segment of the rugby public who didn't think he deserved to be there in the first place, let alone be captain. Whether that's true or not, that was the perception. And cricket is so much more numbers-based than rugby. You can look at Tim Southee's bowling figures and say, right, well, here he is compared to Matt Henry. Anybody can see that Matt Henry is a better bowler at the moment than Tim Southee in Test cricket. And yet Southee's not going to be dropped because he's captain. You shouldn't drop your captain. Your captain should never be dropped. We need to take it back and say it was the wrong decision in hindsight to appoint him captain. And I give a lot of credit to Tim Southee for realising that his performances haven't been up to it recently, and stepping aside from the captaincy. I rate it. Thanks for your call, Chris. Murray, hi.
Hey there, Tiny. How are you today?
Very good, Murray. How are you?
Yeah, well, I'm in hospital, but coming right, recovering. Got a couple of fractures in my back. But we'll come right.
All right, mate. Well, just hold your phone a bit closer to your mouth, mate, because I can't, unless you're not able to, because I can't quite. Yep, got you better there now, mate. So, all right. So, well,
That's
good
right,
that you
mate.
can chat. Good that you can chat to us, and we can keep you company. What's on your mind?
Well, I coached a lot of junior cricket in my day, and I think you're dead right. You shouldn't drop your captain, and I never did. Of all the captains I had, one of them was McMillan, and you got to sometimes you got to play defensive to get a wicket or two, and I as far as Southee goes, I don't think they'll select him to go to India. I think they'll tell him to get himself right for the green grass for the Oval and Christchurch here. That's what I think.
I hope so. I hope they do, Murray. That's my hope. I hope they do. I just don't think he's probably not going to play in India, right? If we're honest, he's probably not going to play.
No,
So why put him through going? I mean, he's clear. I don't know. He's always, before he was captain, and even while he's captain, he's a popular member of that team. And I don't know, captaincy just seems to have really weighed on him. He just doesn't seem to be as carefree as he used to be. He had a pretty good poker face, but inside that team environment, when he wasn't captain, he was very, very popular with that team, and probably still is. So maybe you take him in that regard, but I don't think he's going to play over there. So I'd be leaving him back here and getting him ready for England.
Yeah, that's right. And as far as Latham goes as captain, he'd be my captain for a long, long time. That's how I see it.
Good on you,
Not
Murray.
just because he comes from Canterbury, but he's a very good player.
Yeah, you do tend to be very parochial down there, but we love that about you, Murray. I feel the same way.
We're going to watch two games of Canterbury today on the rugby, and they're both playing Waikato. Daredevils, aren't they? Who's going to win?
Oh, well, I don't know whether Canterbury are favourite in the women's final, Murray. I really don't think that.
I think they will be.
You reckon?
I think they'll win away from home, yeah.
All right.
I don't like betting against or backing against the Red and Blacks or the black and whites. But that game tonight will be tough. It's on live on Sky Open, and I'll be watching it in my bed. So there you go, and I hope the Red and Blacks win there too. And nice to talk to you.
And to you as well, Murray. Look, I hope for your sake. Look, I've got no skin in either of those two games. I'm from Wellington, so if Canterbury were to beat Waikato in both the Whara Palmer Cup final and the NPC later tonight, then I'd be very happy with that. Or I wouldn't be unhappy with it. I probably would feel quite neutral about it. But I hope for your sake that your red and black sides can both get the job done. Good to chat to you, mate. 0800 80 10 80, 19 away from 1. Grant, George, please hold with you after this. One spare line if you would like to jump aboard. We're back after this on Weekend Sport.
The tough questions off the turf. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine and GJ Gardner-Holmes. New Zealand's most trusted home builder. News Talk ZB.
16-1, Waikato 3-0 ahead of Canterbury in the Whara Palmer Cup final after 5 minutes and about to score their first try to make it... Oh, no, they haven't quite got there. Now they... have got there. There you go. 8-0 with a kick to come. So Murray, you might need to come back from your red and blacks. 8-0 kick to come. 6 minutes gone in the Whara Palmer Cup final. Cam Roigard's on the radio with us after 1 o'clock. Grant, thanks for holding.
Yeah, Piney. 3 years ago, I think most people would probably agree that Latham should have been captain because Southee's form started to go downhill for basically 3 years ago when he was made captain. And then 2 years ago, his form was even worse than it was 3 years ago. And last year, on New Zealand's green wickets, his form was absolutely diabolical. So I have to say I wouldn't rate him even as the number 4 fast bowler in New Zealand conditions on current form. And so I don't think he should get a swan song. I mean, Scott Robertson said that Sam Cane wasn't picked on sentimentality to get him through to 100. He was picked because he was the best flanker on form at this season. And I think there's one or two provincial bowlers that possibly could be better than Southee. So in my opinion, this would, unless they bring him in, say, give him some net sessions and he starts getting edges and knocking stumps over the New Zealand batsmen at net practice all over the place, I wouldn't pick him against England.
Who are the provincial bowlers who would perhaps be there ahead of him?
I knew you would say that, Piney. I just said possibly. I mean, because his form is so bad, I don't know the exact figures of New Zealand bowlers, have they even started playing cricket yet? Possibly. but I mean, would you, on his current form the last year, how could you justify picking him?
Not in Sri Lanka and India, absolutely not. No. In New Zealand conditions, okay, so let's say they go with 4 seamers, which they probably will. As Rich and I talked about before, and you may agree, I'd love to see a spinner in there as well, but I don't think they will. I think they're too conservative in their selections at home to go with a spinner, so I think they'll go 4 seamers. So clearly, Matt Henry is one, Will O'Rourke is another, and then you're down to the likes of Ben Sears, who's still very green, quick, but I'd probably still have him in there. Kyle Jamieson, we don't know if he's fit or not. He seems to continue breaking things, which is a great shame. Neil Wagner's gone. I don't think you put Scott Kugelheim in there. Jacob Duffy's probably the best one of the rest. I'd have Southee in there, Grant.
Would you agree that he would have to show good form in the nets to justify a matchday selection then?
Yes, I agree.
They have him in the squad.
Yeah, and I also think you don't say, okay, you've got all 3 tests. I think he plays the first test at Hagley, see how he goes there, and if he bowls well there, I think you keep him there. Unencumbered by the captaincy, my deep hope is that Tim Southee rediscovers the form which has had him at the top of the cricketing tree for large parts of the last 5 or 6 years. Yes, in the last 2 or 3 years, since he took the captaincy, and you have to make the correlation, it hasn't been there. Dylan Cleaver, our good friend who often joins us on the show, talks about a 3-for, 3 wickets in a test innings as being like a 50 for a batsman. And a 5-for is like a century. The last time Tim Southee took 3 wickets in a test innings was in March of 2023. So we're talking 18 months ago. And there's been the best part of 7 or 8 test matches since that. The last time he took a 5-for was in that same series. He'd just taken over as captain then. So he started off really well. Got 7 wickets in Christchurch and then another 4 in Wellington in that series. But from there, it's been pretty slim pickings for Tim Southee as captain. I hope, unencumbered by the leadership responsibility, that he comes right. And we'll keep an eye on it, Grant. Good to chat to you. Hello, George.
G'day, Piney. How are you?
Good, George. Good.
Hey, I'm attempting to draw quite a long bow here, so feel free to tell me if I'm clutching at straws. But
I love long bows.
Yeah,
Go for it.
I'm keen for your thoughts here. This was on the back of your really good interview with Mike Brewer a couple of weeks ago around the psyche of the All Blacks at the time. But the last four weeks has seen the All Blacks give up big leads over in Africa. The Silver Ferns netball the other night sort of give away leads in games they really should have won. And obviously, as we're talking about now, the Black Caps give away a game in Sri Lanka that they really should have taken charge of, and maybe more historically that game over here against Australia where we just we had them very big time on the ropes and we didn't take our chance. Do you think, Piney, there's something worrying flowing through the high performance pathways and mindsets of our athletes at the moment that are just lacking a ruthlessness or an aggression or a confidence that is seeing us, that shows that there's a correlation in all of those performances?
I don't think the bow's too long, George. I don't think you're drawing a long bow. As you were talking, I wrote down feet on throats. And I just don't know whether it's in our psyche to put our foot on someone's throat and really push down consistently because, you're right. It's maybe we're just too nice.
Well, exactly. And I know when I called the other time, we talked a bit about the other All Blacks trying to be a bit more like Brendan McCullum and the Black Caps. But the thing about Brendan McCullum, you see installed a culture of playing fair, embracing the team, paying respects. But he was tough, and he had a look in his eye that he could give, and he backed himself, and he'd take no backward steps to fast bowlers, and he'd take them on, and I think, he's found himself that captain in Ben Stokes, who is exactly of that ilk. And I just, I've just reflected on our sportsmen. Are we too nice? Are we paying a little bit too much respect to our oppositions and not going in for the kill when it really matters? Because those three matches I just referred to, we arguably should have won all of those games, and we were quick to talk at the end of them about the quality of the opposition we were coming up against. But the reality is, we are there or thereabouts to win those games, but we're not putting the foot on the throat, as you say, Piney, in those critical times. And as much as I love Latham, and he's been a great servant of our game, he doesn't give off that type of inspiration and courageousness that he'll be aggressive and make those big plays. I think Phillips and to an extent Daryl Mitchell are two players in the Black Caps that have that. I just don't think Mitchell's quite on top of his game to command the captaincy, but he has got that raw aggression to him and confidence that he backs himself. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, Mitchell's a really interesting one to me. I still think back to that interview he did, and maybe his words were taken out of context, when he said after a loss to, I think it was the first test to Australia last summer, when he said, we should be judged on more than just results. And at the elite level, I don't agree with that at all. I think you are judged on results. But he commands his place in the side, absolutely. I don't know. I just like the idea of Glenn Phillips moving forward. He reminds me a bit of Brendan McCullum, and I wonder what that would look like in a leadership sense,
Yeah, exactly. No, definitely. Hey, and really quickly, because I know I'm going to get booed off soon, I've been painting the house the last 8 weeks, so you've been a constant source of companionship, I guess I call it, over the 12 till 4 p.m. slot. So I just wanted to say, mate, you do a brilliant job on Talkback. Love your show, love your keen eye and judgment, and always happy to ring up. But hopefully this is the last weekend with a paintbrush in hand, so...
Love it.
But I just thought I'd say you got to call out good performances where they are, and your show is second to none, Piney. So I really appreciate it.
That's lovely, George. The irony is that if I was there with you with a paintbrush, I would be bloody hopeless. I'd be useless. So I think the ability to keep you company would be all I can offer, mate. So thanks for taking the time to call in. Take it easy, George. Hope the painting or the rest of it goes well. Sounds like you're almost at the finish line, my friend. I love the deep thought you gave to that opinion as well. Good man. 7 to 1. News Talk ZB back after this. It was one of the all-time great examples of not being able to quite get across the line. We were winning that race, weren't we, when the wind dropped inexplicably. We would have won it, but as it happened, 8-1 ahead, losing 9-8. Yeah, very good example. America's Cup 2024, we've got our challenger. Ineos Britannia have beaten Luna Rossa 7-4 in the final of the Louis Vuitton Challenger Series, so it'll be Ineos Britannia against Team New Zealand for the 37th America's Cup final, starting next Sunday. Professor Mark Orams after 2 actually on that, on how we match up and whether we might be going in a bit cold. We've hardly raced. We haven't raced properly. We had some races in the Louis Vuitton early stages, but just to kind of get out there, really. Meantime, Ineos Britannia have been racing, full on, hard out for quite a while now. Is that going to be a factor? We'll get to that after 2 o'clock with Professor Mark Orams. Ellesse Andrews this hour as well, but one of the most eagerly awaited rugby comebacks in recent times will play out this afternoon in Palmerston North.
Now up the middle, the All Blacks have finally got something on the rampage. It's Cam Roigard, he's flying, taken, just before the line, reaches out and scores. Cam Roigard!
Cam Roigard's return to rugby is all but complete, 6 months after undergoing surgery to repair a ruptured patella tendon that he suffered in Super Rugby at the back end of March. The All Blacks and Hurricanes halfback will turn out for Counties Manukau in this afternoon's NPC match against Manawatu in Palmerston North. Cam Roigard's with us. Cam, great to have you almost back out there. How do you reflect, first of all, on the last 6 months in general terms?
Yeah, I guess it's been a bit of a roller coaster. Thinking right back to the injury, how it sort of happened, and how quickly the operation happened, and just the whole process of rehab. It's been quite a journey, but I feel I'm fit, ready to go, and just really excited to get back out there. It's, like you said in the intro, it's been just over 6 months since my operation, so I'm really excited to get back out there.
What was the most challenging part of the last 6 months?
I think the early doors of the rehab. So for those that don't know, I had a wire that they put in there in the operation to keep the patella from moving, so it could heal pretty much. And I was in a straight leg brace for over a month. I guess trying to get that flexion and extension back in my knee when I was trying to rehab at the early stages was definitely a challenge. And I guess, just with that flexion and extension when it sort of felt like glass because I hadn't moved it for so long. And, everything with that wire in was a challenge. But the work that we did put in the early doors of the rehab was very beneficial to actually making the milestone of getting back to playing, for sure.
Did you find it hard to be patient and to follow the plan without wanting to jump ahead?
Yeah, I guess so. It was like credit to the Hurricanes medical team. Like we set a plan right at the start, and we broke it down into certain steps and talked about how if we do take our time with the early doors of the process, that'll sort of benefit us in the back end. And I was a little bit, in denial to start with, but I had full faith in them and what they sort of believed in, so I was happy to trust them. And I guess I was pretty lucky that they had done some stuff with TJ with his Achilles injury and saw what challenges he faced. So being able to, learn from his experience before I've had mine helped in that case. So I was doing what I needed to do, but I wasn't pushing the boat out and sort of risking either re-rupturing it or causing other setbacks. So credit to them because the plan that they set and the work that I've done to match that has made it, all worthwhile.
How did you mentally navigate the more challenging times in the whole process?
Yeah, I think just not looking too far ahead and, try not to think about the what if I don't come back and what if I'm not, running as fast as I can and all that sort of stuff. Because, just being focused on the process. And like I said, there were lots of little milestones that I was trying to take off. So trying to get my flexion back, which was a challenge. But, every little win kept me really positive, and that's where like I say, the medical team, Nicole and Jared, they were great because I guess we're sort of celebrating those, and I was doing lots of stuff with the Kerry Evans and David Gray, who are the mindset coaches at the All Blacks and the Hurricanes, and they were great for, I guess, framing up my mindset to tackling this Challenger rehab. And I think we did a good job. And I guess, I didn't really, because I was super busy with the rehab, I didn't have too much time to sort of feel sorry for myself, to be fair.
That's good to hear. And you documented the whole thing on Instagram as well for a bunch of followers. How much did that help keep you on track, that you were almost, I don't know, it was a bunch of people who just wanted to know where you were in your journey? Yeah, that's right. I guess that all sort of started because I was getting so many messages about when am I back and, how's the rehab and stuff going. So I thought I'd just chuck it up so then if people want to see it, they can hear it right from the source rather than speculating. So, it was good to just, I guess, keep those people in the loop that did care, and I can feel the sort of excitement that's been building over the past couple of weeks as they sort of knew that I was sort of getting pretty close to playing, and it was awesome to be back in with the All Blacks last week, mixing up with them and sort of getting used to that high intensity training and help prep for this week. So it's been pretty cool, the support that I've had throughout the journey, and I guess now that I'm sort of back playing, it's pretty exciting, and it's just pretty great the support that I've had. Yep. So here we are. You're about to head back out there. Is there any part of you that feels a bit of trepidation as you look forward to your first game back?
No, I don't think so. I think we've just put in a lot of work to get to this point, so there's no time to sort of worry about the what ifs and the nerves and all that sort of stuff. I'm not going to let my nerves get in the way of everything that I've done for the past 6 months to sort of get me here. So, I feel like I'm ready. We've had some really good training weeks in the build-up and done some really good stuff to make sure that I am ready. So I'm just going to make sure I go out there and enjoy myself. And, once I'm out there, I just put my head down and I'm sure it'll sort of come back to me pretty quickly, hopefully. And once I get that first tackle and first carry out of the way, I think I'll be away, yeah.
What about match fitness, Cam? What's your assessment around how long it'll take your body to get used to actually playing games of rugby again?
Yeah, I think that's always something that you sort of you forget about a little bit. No matter how much field running and all that sort of stuff you do, it's nothing quite the same as a game, just because of the adrenaline, the contact, which I guess fatigues you a lot more than you realise. But we've tried to do as much as we can in training and stuff to sort of replicate that. So, I guess that's just time, but it might take a couple games. But hopefully, if we have a good result on the weekend, we might get another game for the counties in the quarterfinals. So, just trying to, I guess, I just feel it. I know I'll wake up sore on tomorrow, which is all part of it. But, it'll be just great to be back out there, and hopefully I can sort of get out there. And I know that in terms of my numbers and stuff and how I've been training, I'm fit as I was before I was injured. So that'll just take time.
Outstanding. You mentioned before doing some work with Kerry Evans in the mindset space. How much contact have you had with the All Blacks coaches in the last 6 months? I've had a little bit, to be fair. They've been really good in terms of keeping contact, and especially their medical team. I haven't had too much to do with them, but they've been great with checking in and sort of seeing how my progress is going. And I've been floating around, especially at the early stage of my rehab, seeing them, and had a really good, I guess, some really good connection with Scott Henson, who's obviously the attack coach and does a lot of stuff with the other halfbacks. So, it's been really good that he's sort of been doing some stuff with me to make sure that I'm still keeping my rugby brain on and not just switching off completely, and trying to get better even though that I'm not playing. So, and last week, like I said, was really great to be fully involved with the team and being in all those meetings and all that sort of stuff, which is awesome, just to sort of get back in the frame of thinking about rugby. And it's just been really good for, I guess, the preparation going into this week. How did you go watching rugby, watching the Hurricanes play, watching the All Blacks play? How was that?
Yeah, it was obviously challenging with the Hurricanes. I was really enjoying the season that we're having. We've got a great team, great teammates, and we play an awesome brand of footy that suits the way I like to play. So, obviously when I was injured, it was pretty hard to watch initially, but, we still had an awesome year. We obviously didn't get the result that we were after, but, I have full faith that we'll be able to, back up similar performances and build on the year just been. So, I guess, like I say, it's just sport, and everyone, has their injuries and all that sort of stuff. So I guess it's one of those things which it is what it is. But same thing with the All Blacks, I feel like if I was available, I'd be able to add some value where I can, but I haven't had too much time to sort of dwell on it. I've quite enjoyed being a fan, actually. It's always a team that I looked up to and loved watching, so being able to, I guess, do that again from a different perspective has been great. And, yeah, if I do get an opportunity to be back in the mix for the Northern Tour, it'll be pretty exciting.
Well, congrats on nailing your rehab, Cam, almost to the day. It's a real demonstration of following the process, mate. Congrats on that. All the best this afternoon. Thanks for taking the time for a chat.
Awesome, thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Cam. Cam Roigard there, about to return for Counties Manukau against Manawatu this afternoon in Palmerston North. 2:05 that game kicks off. He'll come off the bench, as will Dalton Papali'i in that game. A bunch of All Blacks have been released back to their provinces for games this weekend. You heard Cam mention there that Counties, they are still in the mix for a quarter-final spot. I've just been looking at the table. So Counties currently have 23 points. They're sitting in 9th place. Canterbury are 8th, Otago are 7th, and Waikato are 6th. Now, Otago won last night, but that's it for them. They're done. So if Counties win this afternoon, they'll go 1 point ahead of Otago, and I don't think can be caught. They can be caught by North Harbour if North Harbour win their final match of the MPC. They can be caught by North Harbour. Just stay with me on this because it's a little bit complicated. But Southland play North Harbour this afternoon. If North Harbour get a bonus point, they'll go past Counties. If Counties don't get a bonus point, I'm not going to even try and explain this. It's much easier for you just to look at the table and work it out. But it feels to me if Counties Manukau win with a bonus point this afternoon, they'll play quarterfinals. So that'll give Cam Roigard another game next week, which is kind of what we're after here, at least one game anyway before they take off. The team for the Northern Tour, incidentally, the All Blacks team for the Northern Tour is named on Monday, 2:00 Monday afternoon, so we'll break it all down for you on Sports Talk on Monday night. But, we all know Cam Roigard's going to be in that team, provided he comes through this afternoon all right. And that just got me to thinking, he's only played 5 test matches, Cam Roigard. He's not an established All Black by any stretch of the imagination. You remember last year, he wasn't even picked for the big games at the Rugby World Cup. He played against Namibia, Italy and Uruguay in pool play, but Finlay Christie was preferred to him in the quarterfinal, the semi-final and the final. So, and before that, he debuted against Australia in Melbourne in the Rugby Championship, and then also the try we just played for you there was when he came off the bench against South Africa in that game at Twickenham before the World Cup. So he hasn't really played a lot, but such has been his impact on the side, and particularly his Super Rugby form, that Cam Roigard's basically our number one halfback, isn't he? If everybody's fit, and looking at this end-of-year tour, everybody will be, Cam Roigard's the number one halfback, isn't he? This has also got me thinking about the makeup of this end-of-year tour squad for the All Blacks, because they'll only take 3 halfbacks, and there are 4 in the mix from what I can see. There's the 3 who have played the Rugby Championship, TJ Perenara, Cortez Ratama, Noah Hotham, and add Cam Roigard in there. So there's 4 halfbacks. They're only going to take 3. So who doesn't go? We're going to actually break this down tomorrow. We're going to go into more detail on this, particularly around the halfback position and also around the open side flanker conversation as well with Sam Cane. So does TJ Perenara go on that tour? Does Sam Cane go on that tour? Given the fact that we know neither of them are going to be here beyond the end of this year. I don't want to get into it too much now, but I want to talk about it tomorrow. Kieran, any thoughts on Cam Roigard?
Yeah, mate. Yeah. I just hear you saying Roigard's coming back into the mix, but Cortez has been playing some pretty good footy.
Oh, 100%.
So it's going to be tough for him to come back, especially after that sort of injury, and make a name for himself again. That's all I'm thinking, and especially TJ coming off the bench, he's had pretty good impact. It's going to be pretty tough for him, eh?
Oh, look, I agree. No, Kieran, I agree. Without wanting to put the cart before the horse, as long as Cam Roigard gets through today, okay, he'll be on that tour. But you're right. I'd take TJ, Cam, and Cortez, but I don't know how I would play it in terms of each Test match as a double punch. I think beyond this year, I think we can look forward to a Cam Roigard, Cortez Ratama double punch with Noah Hotham there as well. That's very exciting. But the back end of this year is fascinating to me, mate. I don't know how they're going to do it in terms of who gets what jersey.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think Cortez has done enough to cement himself in that 9 jersey. And like you said, Roigard's not an established All Black. He did have an outstanding start to his AB's career, but you just got to... It's look at him on a scudder when he had that injury. It's tough to come back from those ones.
It is. Good thoughts, Kieran. Thanks, mate. Yeah, like I said, we're going to discuss it more on the show tomorrow if you get the opportunity to listen and to call in after midday. Want to have a good sort of drill down into what the All Blacks might do in the halfback spot for the end of year tour, both in terms of selection and then who might play. Like I say, beyond this year, I think we can all look forward very much to Cortez Ratama, Cam Roigard and Noah Hotham really battling it out for the positions in a matchday squad. But at the end of this year, you've got to add TJ Perenara into that mix as well. So, how do they do it? Good to chat, Kieran. Thanks for calling in. 1:25 it is. Half-time in the Farah Palmer Cup Premiership Final. 17-all between Waikato and Canterbury. Tight game playing out there at FMG Stadium in Hamilton. We're going to take a break. When we come back, one of the heroes, one of the real stars of the Paris Olympic Games, Ellesse Andrews, is going to join us. As a network of locally owned and operated family businesses, the GJ team are proud to support their fellow New Zealanders on all the courts, tracks, fields and pitches around the country. Since 1997, GJ have built over 20,000 homes in New Zealand. So if you're looking to build, choose New Zealand's most trusted building team, GJ Gardner Homes. GJ Gardner, proud to be New Zealand's most trusted home builder. Head to www.gjgardner.co.nz or call and talk to one of their experienced team on 0800 42 45 46. That website again, www.gjgardner.co.nz.
The biggest names in sport are on Weekend Sport with Jason Pine and GJ Gardner Homes, New Zealand's most trusted home builder. News Talk ZB.
1:29, Ellesse Andrews in just a moment. G'day, KB.
How are you, mate? How's things?
Very good.
Yeah. Hey, what's the story with Christie? I've actually watched about his last 5 games, and I cannot understand why he's not in the mix. To my way of thinking, he's better than all those 4.
Finlay Christie?
Yeah.
He's playing well, I'll give you that, for Tasman. I'm not sure that he really secured his place when he played for the All Blacks earlier this year, KB. I think he's still worthy of being in the conversation. I just wonder whether he's been overtaken by the blokes like Cortez Ratama, Noah Hotham and Cam Roigard coming back. I just don't know whether there's room for Finlay Christie.
Yeah, well, I can't see why. I watched all those guys play. I think he's way faster. He's more aggressive. He's your ninth forward when you need him. He's not backward and coming forward to get in there in the dirty stuff. You know what I mean?
I do.
And he has got great tacking ability. His pass is brilliant, and he's quicker speed-wise. So I think he might have dirtied the copybook somewhere with Razor.
Yeah, I don't know that, KB. Look, what I'll be interested in seeing is what they do at Tasman when Noah Hotham comes back. I haven't seen the Tasman team named. I'm sure it has been named for the Shield Challenge tomorrow. I presume Christie will start and Hotham will come off the bench. I thought it was really interesting during the last month or so when they released All Blacks back to their provinces. They didn't release Noah Hotham back to Tasman, and I just wondered at the time whether that might be because they wanted to avoid any possible awkwardness with Christie having been dropped from the All Blacks and potentially dropped from the Tasman side as well. Just checking the team. Yeah, Christie's going to start. Noah Hotham off the bench in the Shield Challenge tomorrow. It's a good point you make, KB. I think maybe we've forgotten a bit about Finlay Christie. Does he have a future in the All Blacks? He may well. We'll see what happens on Monday at 2 o'clock. Thanks for taking the time to call in. It's 29 to 2.
Weekend Sport.
One of the undoubted stars of the Paris Olympic Games, track cyclist Ellesse Andrews. She won gold first of all in the Keirin.
A lap to go now. Ellesse Andrews on the inside and up, but she's got the Brit coming around. Looks like it's in the form of Finucane. The power goes on. Can Ellesse Andrews hold it as she comes down towards the finishing line? Ellesse Andrews on the line. It looks like she's won gold. Ellesse Andrews, intense, incisive, invincible. At the Paris Velodrome, too much power and too much panache.
And then she went on to win gold again in the individual sprint.
As Andrews powers up the track, starting to move. They work their way around to the home straight. Away goes Ellesse Andrews up against Leah Friedrich. Andrews comes around the bend. She's in control, no time for Yamada to caution now. Here she goes. Around the bend, can she pedal to a new chapter in New Zealand cycling history? She can! Ellesse Andrews is a double gold medalist in Paris. She completes her own Arc de Triomphe.
Oh, I love it from Andrew Alderson. 2 golds for Ellesse Andrews, becoming the first woman to complete the sprint Keirin Olympic double. She was also part of the silver medal winning team sprint. So 3 medals in Paris. That was after she won silver in the Keirin at the last Olympics in Tokyo, 3 golds and a silver at the 2022 Commonwealth Games, and Keirin gold and sprint bronze at the World Champs last year. What a haul! Ellesse Andrews is with us. You'll be running out of places to keep all your medals.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yeah, I've been asked that question. Where am I going to keep them? I'm still thinking on that. So we'll see.
All right. With a few weeks to reflect back on Paris, what stands out the most when you think back?
Yeah, I think it's really been quite nice having this time and space to really reflect on the games, and that's like quite a pattern for me. I feel historically, just needing to take some time for myself to really think about the racing and reflect properly. So I'm really grateful to have had that time, and yeah, it's really special to look back. And I don't know if I can pick one memorable moment, but the whole thing was just crazy.
What were your hopes, your expectations, your goals going into Paris?
Yeah, so I knew it was going to be a massive week. With 6 days of racing out of 7, it was going to be so tough. And so I knew that going in. So I really just wanted to race every race day as best as I could. And, in the individual races, that meant that I'd be continuing to progress through the racing and hopefully make it to the finals and that top spot as a dream. But with the team, we were really wanting to hunt down a medal. And we knew that we could be there if we put our best performance forward, which we did on the day. And, getting that silver medal was very special.
Did the order of the events suit you? When you look back, did the order in which they fell, did that actually play in your favour or did it not?
I feel like it doesn't. I mean, it's nice to have the team event first. I do actually really like the order, having the team event over one day and first, but the order of the individual events, probably not, but maybe that's just because I'm used to it. Like, I've raced that format a couple of times before. Tokyo, the Keirin was first and then the sprint was second. Last year's Worlds was the same and this year's Games was the same, so potentially I'm just used to it.
The Keirin, did you always feel in control once you got to the back end of the Keirin event?
Yeah, I felt really calm and controlled throughout the whole competition. Maybe getting that first race out of the way is always quite a nice feeling. But after that, I really did feel like I could just, sort of breathe and relax into my racing and make the best decisions possible with what was happening around me. And so I did feel really calm and in control. And but obviously, coming into the final, that was just. I just gave it absolutely everything I had. There was no control in the final. You just have to go full gas.
Is that one of the keys to it, to leaving enough in the tank that when it comes to that final, you can just give it absolutely everything?
Yeah, I think if that's possible, then yes. And that's something that I don't think I have done very well in the past. And I think that's just an age thing and experience, is really kind of reading the race and, not using all of your energy to get to the finish line first. Like, there are smarter ways to race. And so that's kind of a change that I really did feel this Games, is that I could make those just tiny, tiny decisions that would mean that I had a little bit more energy left at the end.
I think you were, I presume this is true, and you might be able to tell me that you were probably favourite for the Keirin. Did that give you any extra pressure or motivation? How did that make you feel that really people thought that you were the one who was going to be on the top of the podium?
Oh, thank you. Maybe a little bit. I think that also I'm not sure, because there were quite a few girls that were talked about for that sort of that glory top spot, and it wasn't always me. So I feel like it wasn't crazy pressure, at least that I felt anyway, because realistically there were many girls that could push for that top spot, and the media in different countries obviously were favouring their athletes. So so I didn't always feel that pressure.
What about the sprint? I mean, with all due respect, I'm not sure that you were absolute favourite for the sprint. You were probably one of a bunch. You were one of a bunch of riders who may or may not be there. So how did you approach the sprint?
Yeah, I definitely wasn't a favourite. But, I approached it knowing that I needed to qualify further up the field than I have historically. So in the past, I've sort of been around that maybe 8th to 11th place qualifying from the 200, and then I've had to race my way up into the top positions, which is a really tough way to do things. But, we've done a lot of work on that 200 in the last little while, and so I knew that if I could get that right and nail that, then I would qualify further up in the field. So that was the first box to tick. And then from that point on, it was just, focusing one race at a time. And I wasn't the favourite. It was definitely an upset that I was in the final ahead of some of the other girls. But it's just the way it happens.
I think some of my favourite images of Paris are you staring down Leah Friedrich before the sprint final. Do you enjoy that side of the event? I don't know whether it's psyching someone out, or do you enjoy that sort of thing though?
Yeah, I mean, sprinting is a very interesting sport and interesting, discipline. And, that is part of it. And I think it's not always just like freak someone out, I do have to have eyes on my opponent at all times. And I think for me, that's like a nice mental switch, is to have that moment where you roll up to the start line and you are looking at your opponent, because that's what you're going to need to be doing to be aware of where they are on the track. And so that's part of it. But then also knowing that, it is that sort of mental game side of it as well.
Yeah, love it. Can you give us some insight into the influence of your coach, your dad, John?
Yeah. For sure. He came on board less than a year before the games, after our previous coach, Nick, had to move back to Australia with his family. So that was a real surprise, and probably reasonably stressful at the time to think, we are coachless going into the games. But, it just worked out really well that John had just been in Australia coaching over there and then finally come back to New Zealand and was working in an RT consultant contractor role, and so it just worked out that he was able to apply for the job and come on board. So yeah, it's been great to have him on board. It's been really special. It's been such a whirlwind of a time, I think, him coming on board, especially because of how late he came on in the piece. But I think we've been able to do some really great work together.
Interesting. I heard you call him John there. Is that what you do when he's coaching you? You don't call him Dad?
No, I don't. No.
Is it an interesting dynamic, though? Because at the end of the day, he's your dad. You're his daughter. Was he able to I don't know, be proud, but also be able to coach you in a way that would get the best out of you?
Oh, yeah. I think, when it comes to racing, he's coaching me as a coach, and that sort of celebration as a family comes afterwards, just like all the other athletes. They are trackside with their coach, and then later on, after they've finished warming down and drug testing and media and all of that, is when you can actually celebrate with your family. So I think that was kind of how it worked for us, is that, obviously we were stoked to be there together, but it was sort of in that professional capacity until we could have some family time with, my mum and my partner and grandparents later on.
Very cool. All right, so do you get a break, and what's next?
Yes, I do get a break, which is quite refreshing. It's been nice to be able to go home, do a little bit of travel around the South Island and visit some of my favourite places. And next, I will be getting back into training properly on the track in October. And then I have a series called Champions League in Europe over November, December. So I'll be heading over to Europe in November.
All right. And do you have eyes on 2028?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do.
Excellent. I think that's all we need to know about that at the moment. Right at the start of a new Olympic cycle, Ellesse, you gave us some. You gave us it is indeed. You gave us some amazing moments in Paris. Congratulations! All your hard work paid off. Thank you for taking the time for a chat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ellesse. Ellesse Andrews there, golden girl, or one of them, at the Paris Olympic Games. Good to know she's going around again. Who knows what she might achieve over the next 4 years. 2 golds and a silver this time around. We don't know, of course, whether track cycling will be at the Glasgow Commonwealth Games. Still to be decided what the program will be there. But World Championships, etc., she just seems like an absolute diamond, doesn't she, Ellesse Andrews? And someone who's going to, I'm sure, enjoy a lot more success over the months and years ahead. 18 away from 2. We'll take a break, come back and cross the Tasman. Adam Peacock, our Australian correspondent, in his regular slot up next.
Don't get caught offside. Call 0800 80 1080. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine and GJ Gardner Homes, New Zealand's most trusted home builder. News Talk ZB.
1:45, 15 minutes gone, second half, Farah Palmer Cup Premiership final. Canterbury lead Waikato 22-17. This is going to be an exciting final quarter, or final 25 minutes of that game in Hamilton. Andrew on text says, in my view, Ellesse should win New Zealand Sportsperson of the Year at the Hellbergs. Her performance was totally dominant in a major global sport. She was so much better than her opponents. Andrew, it's such an interesting point. Sportswoman of the Year. I mean, good luck picking that, right? Ellesse Andrews, Dame Lisa Carrington, Lydia Ko. How do you separate those 3? They've all had absolutely spectacular years. So, yeah, it almost seems unfair to choose one over the others. But you feel as though whoever wins Sportswoman of the Year may well win the Supreme Hellberg. That's for others to decide, not for us to decide, thankfully. Let's get across the Tasman. Australian correspondent Adam Peacock is with us. NRL Grand Final tomorrow night, Adam. Storm v Panthers. The clash we always thought we'd get, the one we wanted. Who wins this?
Oh, flip of the coin generally is Piney. Good afternoon. It's really tough to cut through it because Penrith they're in their 5th straight grand final, looking for their 4th straight win. Melbourne have all of a sudden revitalised themselves and are playing some really quick attacking footy. So you've got the ones that have been there, done that, and the ones that look like they're about to go there and do that. And it's really difficult to match up because they even each other out so well. They're so good. They're clearly the best 2 teams. So I'm just leaning towards Penrith by virtue of the fact that they can, Melbourne, by virtue of the fact that they can play a little bit quicker. See, there you go. I'm even confused about my own tips. It's that close. But it should be a great game of footy, and it's going to be dry as well. You know what I say about dry weather footy. 10 times better than wet weather footy. So, yeah, this will be a spectacle. This will be a damn good game of rugby league.
Just on the fact that they are clearly the 2 best sides, how big is the gap back? Because, I mean, the Storm gave it to the Roosters, last weekend, and the Roosters aren't a bad side, but they're clearly nowhere near the Storm, probably nowhere near the Panthers. How big is the gap back from these 2?
I reckon if these 2 play any other team, they beat them 9 times out of 10 at the moment. That's how significant I think it is. When the stakes are high, like a grand final qualifier, that's how big it is at the moment. And there are a few factors why it's happened like that, but it's good that there's 2 of them and not like just one of them, and everyone's just rocking up to a grand final tomorrow thinking, well, can I keep it within 20? That's not the case. So. Yeah, clearly the best 2, and it's like a title fight almost. You just want to see it happen and start.
Yep, can't wait for tomorrow night. Okay, Women's T20 Cricket World Cup. I'm sure you've caught up with the news that the White Ferns beat India in their opening match. Australia have won the last 3 of these. You confident they'll make it 4?
Oh, yeah. Without being arrogant, how can you not be? It's because they've got such a well-balanced side, and sometimes it doesn't quite work out like that. I mean, look, Meg Lanning has given the game away, and I think one by one these big players like Elisa Healy, who I work with over here in Australia, and she's magnificent and keen to captain this side. Elise Perry, one by one, they'll kind of drift away in the next 4 to 5 years, but we've got this undercurrent coming through, and it's because we've got such a strong WBBL, the domestic women's T20 competition that runs here in early summer, and I think New Zealand have benefited from that particular competition. We see Sophie Devine over here all the time. Amelia Kerr is a big addition to the Sydney Sixers, and they're two of the Kiwis' best players. And look what they've done to India overnight. So, and India send players here as well. So I think Australia's depth is their key, and that they've got selection issues who to leave out, and that's a damn good problem. So they play Sri Lanka first up. They've got to get over that. They've got to get going. Should be okay in that one. But yeah, really happy for the Kiwis, and it blows the tournament wide open because India are expected to be with Australia there at the finish. But that's massive, especially with net run rate as well.
Indeed. And Australia against New Zealand early hours of Wednesday morning as well. So we'll look forward to that one. Another one of your female teams are the absolute juggernaut that is the Matildas football team. They've got a change of coach. Tony Gustafsson replaced an interim charge by Tom Samani, who of course was in charge of our football ferns for a while. Who are the favourites for the permanent role as head coach of the Matildas moving forward?
There's no one yet, Piney. It's really weird. I think they're happy to really take their time because there's no qualifiers on the horizon. There's no tournament on the horizon. There will be soon. There'll be a Women's Asian Cup to really plan for. But the Tommy Samani, and I don't know if you got to know him, he's one of the best blokes going around. So he'll just take the air out of the room. He'll just get everyone to chill out. He'll get everyone on the same page. Look, a lot of these players, like a Sam Kerr, Caitlin Ford, Tom gave their Matilda's debut to and his first crack at Matilda's coach. So, I mean, it could work out that the whole squad just love working under Tom and they bring in another assistant who, might be a more modern, and not calling Tom not modern, but like a younger, fresher face to be the assistant. And Tom might be the figurehead and oversee things. That might be the way they go, or they do actually get someone in of international recognition. There's no real candidates from the women's game here in Australia. They could go men, but an ex-Matilda, I won't mention her name, but she said, why don't we go for someone like a John Aloisi, which, okay, someone from the men's game to come over. So we'll wait and see. But I think all options are still on the table and they're really going to take their time with this one.
Actually, just before you go, the men's side, Tony Popovic in charge there now, of course, of the Socceroos, named his first squad in the last couple of days. How has his appointment been received after, sort of a week or so of time since the announcement was made?
Yeah, and he named his first squad yesterday, so bringing back players like Mas Luongo and giving young Nishan Valupale from Melbourne Victory, a player that you've obviously seen a few times over there, Piney, given his chance in a Socceroo squad. So a few changes, a few adjustments, but nothing wholesale. It's hard to bag it. It's not as if we're riding on the streets about this appointment. It's fine. He was the next cab off. He was without a club job. He was easy access. He loves the Socceroos. He's made that very, very clear. In his press conference yesterday, he says, I'm not doing sales pitches to players if they want to play. If they make themselves available, then it's up to me to pick them. But I'm not just going to ring up people and say, please play for me. It's not going to happen. So I like that. So, yeah, and he's brought in some Socceroos experience with Hayden Fox and Paul O'Connor as his assistants as well. So, I mean, we'll wait and see. I mean, they've got Japan away as their second match. I think judgment will be cast after that one next week.
All right. Always great chatting Australian sport with you, Adam. Thanks for taking the time. We'll do it again next Saturday.
Cheers, Barney. Have a good one.
You have a good one too, mate. Thanks indeed. Adam Peacock there, our regular Australian correspondent with matters from across the Tasman. Just on the NRL Grand Final, we're going to give this a firm focus on the show tomorrow. Going to chat to Tawara Nikau, of course, former Melbourne Storm player, one of our greats, and Ryan Girdler, who was a very prominent member of Penrith Panthers teams in years gone by. So, yeah, don't worry. We will give full focus to the NRL Grand Final on the show tomorrow. Waikato have just kicked a penalty, so with 18 minutes to go, they lead Canterbury 27-22 in the Farah Palmer Cup Premiership Final. Forums on that, and coaching guru Wayne Goldsmith on what the best way to conduct an end-of-season review is. What are the things you should look at? What are the things you shouldn't bother with? And why do we do reviews at all? Shouldn't teams and organisations be constantly monitoring their performance? Why do we have them at the end of the year? All that to come. Lines of communication open, 0800 80 1080 for a phone call, 9292 for a text, 2:09, as we always do. At around about this time on Weekend Sport, it's time to fire up the Rocky music and bring you up to date with some of the stuff that might have escaped your attention. We call it In Case You Missed It. Andy McDonald puts it together every Saturday and Sunday. And we start in the Australian National Basketball League. Melbourne United picking up a big win over the Perth Wildcats, riding some hot shooting from former NBA player Ian Clark.
Is Clark at the other end, though? Oh, splash! Yeah, absolutely. As Clark is once again rocking and rolling. This is an annihilation at the moment.
97-68, Melbourne United getting the win. Closer to home, the Tokomanawa Queens have begun our women's competition, Tuihi, in winning fashion against the Southern Hoiho.
Look at this, splitting the gap. Park. Out. 3, Hunter. Back-to-back baskets for the Queens. Huge.
73-68, the Tokomanawa Queens winning that one. To the Bunnings NPC, Otago have kept their hopes of playoff rugby alive against Northland.
Goes back to Hasty. Hasty gives it to Miller, who kicks it into touch. Game over, and Otago have done what they set out to do, and they are into the 8 momentarily.
Yeah, 31-28 winners. They wait for the rest of the results to see if they'll play quarterfinal rugby. To the NFL, the Atlanta Falcons have managed to steal a win from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
That's fired, that's caught, and that is Hodge, and Hodge is going to take it to the end zone. A most improbable win for the Atlanta Falcons.
36 points to 30, the Atlanta Falcons winning that one. To the T20 Cricket World Cup for women, South Africa starting their campaign with a 10-wicket win over the West Indies.
Wolford drives, and as you would expect, she drives to finish the game for South Africa and get a crucial 2 points in Group B.
And a football, a late goal has allowed Manchester United to escape Porto with a draw in the Europa League.
Richardson's corner, a thunderous header from Harry Maguire. Boy, Manchester United needed that. Quite the night in Porto. It's back-to-back draws to start the Europa League campaign for Manchester United.
The scoop from the track, field and the court on your home of sport. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine. News Talk ZB.
The White Ferns have broken the 10-game losing streak with an essential victory against India.
Yeah, indeed. The White Ferns have recorded a comprehensive 58-run win over India in their opening match at the T20 World Cup in Sharjah. New Zealand made 160 for 4 in their 20 overs. Sophie Devine leading the way with an unbeaten 57 off 36 deliveries. India bowled out for 102. Rosemary Mayer taking 4 wickets and Leah Tahuhu 3. Let's bring in former White Ferns all-rounder in 60 matches across T20 and one-day international formats, now commentator and cricket analyst Frankie Mackay. Frankie, thanks for joining us. This looks really convincing. 160 for 4, plays 102 all out. Did you see this coming after 10 straight defeats for the White Ferns in this format?
Yeah, I actually will admit that. Yeah, I had a little inkling there that it could be a successful game for the White Ferns. I just thought with the way that they played in Australia, I thought there were lots of good signs in the T20 games leading up to this World Cup. I think then the way they went into their warm-up games, I think there were lots of positives. And I actually reckon from having a look at those warm-up games, I saw the opposite in India. I think they looked a little underdone. I think they looked a little rusty. And they've kind of come out and they've said, this is our best T20 team ever. We've got a sports psych on board now. We are so prepared to have a crack at this. And I just thought, actually, I think that potentially they're anything but. So it really felt like the New Zealand side were in a really good place to be able to try and take them on right from game one. And I think they did. They came out with great intent. Openers put on a really good partnership to get things started. India looked rattled. And the really pleasing thing for me with that New Zealand side is they just didn't take the foot off the throat. They just did not give an inch back. So really, for me, really, really pleasing signs to kick things off.
Sophie Devine was fairly bullish in the post-match press conference, insisting they'd been playing this way and not getting the results. Is that valid, Frankie, or did something change?
I think there's a little bit of validity to it. I think that the way that they have worked over the last year or two on how they want to play cricket they've been really strong in their ideas on what they want to do, and I think it's always hard because they haven't then necessarily actually gone out and played that well, and so I think the ideas have been there of how they want to play and how they want to take the game on, but they just haven't actually been able to execute it. So I think it takes a really strong team to be able to cop some of the criticism and deal with some of the outside noise around the results and how things are going, and actually be able to kind of stick to script and stick to that they know that when they play well, this is what the performance is going to look like, and it's just trying to put those things in place. So I think it can be a little hard at times to justify that to the outside world. I think it's hard to, when you're not winning games, to keep saying, well, actually, we're doing the right stuff, we're training really hard, we're ticking all the right boxes, we know this performance is there, but no one else sees it quite yet. So I think really good for them, and it's just a little bit of self-belief as well. You know, you winning is a habit. If you continue to lose those games, it will chip away a bit of the self-belief. So the fact that they're able to get a win, and a big win to start things off, I think they're in a really good place, and I actually think that team knows they're in a really good place as well now.
Rosemary Mair, 4 for 19, Leah Tahuhu, 3 for 15. Are pace bowlers going to be a bit more important than we thought they might be at this World Cup?
Yeah, you get to see a little bit of a difference between the two venues, between Dubai and Sharjah. You're going to expect that perhaps as well under lights that the seamers are going to have to do a little bit more of the work. The ball's going to go around a little bit. And also I think that as the tournament progresses, that's where you'll maybe see that the spinners come into it more. They got the tournament a little bit last minute, so maybe the preparation and the amount of surfaces they've got ready to go won't quite be as per norm. And obviously it's roasting hot over there. I think it was 38, 39 degrees for the game. So I think the longer the tournament goes on, the more you're going to see the spinners come into it. And teams have definitely gone over with plenty of spin bowling resource. But early games have shown there's definitely a little bit early on for the seamers, and they can put some real pressure on too.
Now, only the top 2 in each of the 5-team groups make the semis. 3-time defending champions Australia in our group. So this is probably a silly question, but how big a result is this against India to our tournament hopes of progressing through to the semi-finals?
Oh, massive. I mean, you look at the way the pools were drawn, and everyone's kind of talked about our pools, the pool of death a little bit, and that you had to be right on the ball right from game one. You've got India first, you play Australia second. You run the risk that if you don't win one of those first 2 games, then actually your tournament's all but over. And a little bit like what we saw with the Black Caps at the recent T20 World Cup. If you're not on your game to start with, then it's over very, very quickly. So I love the way that this White Ferns team, they've had that series against Australia. They've had warm-up games. They are fully prepared, ready to go, and they've shown it right from game one. The cool thing is now, if they turn up and they beat Australia, it puts a loss next to India, a loss next to Australia. Those 2 teams then have to play each other. Only one of them's getting out of it with a win, so that basically will end the tournament for one of the 2 top favourites to go home with the cup. So I don't think you can understate this result at all. I think it is huge for this New Zealand team. I think the confidence they're going to gain from it, the fact that it puts you in contention. You win 2 more games, you're talking semi-finals, and then all of a sudden you've only got to win 2 games of cricket from there, and you're going home with a big cup and a big fat cheque as well. So I think it's massive. It'll put a real dent in the confidence of India as well. They've got a lot of pressure on their shoulders, and look, the way the Australian team have played that recent series against us, played their warm-up games, they are very beatable, and I think every team around the world at the moment is looking at them saying, hey, they've come to a World Cup with no Meg Lanning, not playing that well. Actually, this is our time to tip them up. And the Australian girls, they'll feel the pressure too. They will definitely feel the pressure of expectation being defending champs. So for mine, I think you could not have scripted a better win. Contributions from your top order, seamers doing a good job, spinners contributing. It just felt like one of those performances where, if you're the coaching staff, you go home and could not be happier with how that started.
Brilliant summary, Frankie. A very good way to start for the White Ferns. Long may this continue over the next month or so. Thanks for taking the time for a chat as always.
No worries, Paddy. Always happy to talk, especially when we're winning, and hopefully we get to talk about winning a World Cup too.
Yeah, well, let's hope so, Frankie. Let's hope so. It started off pretty well. Frankie Mackay joining us, former White Ferns all-rounder and now cricket commentator. So, 160 for 4 New Zealand. Susie Bates and Georgia Plimmer opening up well. Susie Bates, 27 off 24 deliveries. Georgia Plymouth, 34 off 23. Millie Kerr with 13, batting at number 3. Then Sophie Devine, 57 not out of 36 deliveries, helped along by Brooke Halliday with 16 off 12, and then an unbeaten 5 off 3 from Maddie Green. 8 runs and over in T20, particularly women's T20, is probably above par. And then India, all out 102. Rosemary Mayer, 4 for 19. Leah Tahuhu, 3 for 15. A couple of wickets for Eden Carson and 1 for Millie Kerr as well. Very comprehensive. A 58-run win. Next up, Australia, 3 o'clock Wednesday morning New Zealand time. I think we can go into that game with renewed hope and optimism. Just had a text before, actually, from a former New Zealand women's cricket captain and very astute observer of the game, and it was her observation that clearly Susie Bates and Georgia Plymouth have just been told to go for it from the start, which feels like a pretty natural thing to do in T20 cricket, doesn't it? Just go for it. And if you can't hit out, get out. But there's been a bit of criticism, and Sophie Devine referenced it in the post-match media conference about the batting order and whether Sophie Devine herself should be opening the batting. You only got 120 deliveries, so why shouldn't she face more of them or as many of them as possible? Clearly, though, they've decided their top 4 is Bates, Plymouth, Kerr and Devine. It certainly worked this morning. So, let's hope for more of the same against Australia in the next game on Wednesday morning. We have our Farah Palmer Cup Premiership champions. It is Waikato. They've beaten Canterbury 27-25 in a cracking final at FMG Stadium, Waikato in Hamilton. Congratulations to the Waikato team, Premier champions in the Farah Palmer Cup for 2024. And just updating you on Bunnings NPC action from Massey University in Palmerston North. That's where this game is being played. Counties Manukau against Manawatu. Manawatu 5, Counties Manukau 7 after 14 minutes in that game. So pretty even early on in that one. 2:21. When we come back, we'll take to the water. We have our challenger for the America's Cup, Ineos Britannia, against Team New Zealand starting next Sunday. Professor Mark Orum's going to break down how Ineos Britannia did it and how big a threat they pose to Team New Zealand to win it off us in a 13 or best of 13 race series starting next Sunday. Professor Mike Orums is with us after this on News Talk ZB. Host of Barcelona.
Ineos Britannia rules the waves of the Mediterranean with a 7-4 victory. They win the Louis Vuitton Cup and will meet Emirates Team New Zealand.
Yes, Ineos Britannia will attempt to pry the old mug from the Kiwis after beating Luna Rossa 7-4. In the Challenger Series final, the Sir Ben Ainslie-led boat needed just the one victory overnight to seal their spot in the Cup match, winning the first of the 2 races planned. The Cup match is scheduled to begin next Sunday, New Zealand time. Let's bring in former New Zealand and world champion sailor, Team New Zealand member, and now Professor of Sport and Recreation at the Auckland University of Technology, Professor Mark Orums. Mark, it was 4-all in the race to 7, very even, but Ineos Britannia won the last 3. So what changed?
Yes, I just think that Ineos Britannia has been the team that's shown the most improvement over this entire series. And in fact, they're a bit average right back in the preliminary regatta sort of 6 weeks ago. But what they've managed to do is to be the most improved team. And while it was certainly a battle all the way through the first part of this Louis Vuitton Challenger finals, once they really got the advantage, they just pressed that home. And actually, looking back on the career of Sir Ben Ainslie, this is a pattern for him. He is really ruthless, and when he gets his tail up, he is very, very difficult to stop, and that permeates throughout the entire team. So the boats were incredibly evenly matched, but those last 3 races, Sir Ben Ainslie as the starboard helm dominated the start and then got the first cross and then just shut down the race from there for 3 straight wins to close it out.
Apart from dominating the starts better, where did the other main improvements come across the last couple of months or so?
Yeah, they've introduced a few new pieces of kit, but nothing remarkably different. What they've learned to do is just to actually sail the boat better. They've focused very much on just trying to get their moding right. They changed a few of their routines in terms of their mark roundings, and they've just slowly, incrementally improved. And that's been a remarkable thing to watch, actually. I certainly see them as a team that's well worthy of taking on Team New Zealand. And it's not just their improvement. Of course, the other advantage that they have is the momentum of and the race readiness they'll have of sort of 17 pretty tough races over the last 2.5 weeks. Well, meanwhile, Team New Zealand's had none. So it's going to be interesting and a big challenge for Team New Zealand, who come in a little bit cold in terms of race readiness next weekend, whereas Ineos Britannia's nailed down a pre-start routine. They've shown that they've got the ability to make the key decisions at critical moments to shut down a race. If they get their nose in front, they're going to be pretty hard to get past.
All right, I want to talk more about the America's Cup match in a moment. Just on Luna Rossa, Mark, how will they reflect on their regatta?
Well, I think in many ways they'll rue the gear breakages they had. 2 races were handed to Britannia because of gear breakages on Luna Rossa. That at this level, that's enormously disappointing for them. In contrast, Britannia's had an incredibly reliable boat that they've just had complete faith in, whereas Luna Rossa, not so. I'm not saying they would have won those races, but certainly you hand 2 points like that in a really even series. That's not something that anybody would want. I'm incredibly impressed with the way that they've sailed, and perhaps it's worth reflecting because Jimmy Spittle has announced his retirement overnight from America's Cup sailing. What an amazing leader, what an amazing competitor he has been in over 20 years in the sport. And his calm presence on board, his communication, his evenness, no matter whether they were in front or behind or whether something had gone wrong or not, deeply, deeply impressive. And I know that as Kiwis, we love to hate an opponent, and we remember the sort of heartbreak of San Francisco and cast Jimmy Spittle as the villain then. But actually, he's a decent guy, great sailor, and an extremely good leader that he's developed into over the years. Indeed. All right, let's look at the America's Cup match. You talked about Team New Zealand potentially going in cold, having not had any competitive racing since the early stages of the Louis Vuitton, which of course didn't really count anyway, but at least they got out on the water. How do they negate that? Because as you say, Ineos Britannia are coming in hot. Yeah, they sure are, and that's quite difficult to negate. So first things first is they need to concentrate on ensuring that they get the pre-start and the start right, and they will have been doing a lot of homework around that. So they need to have a playbook. So if they do this, then we do that. And if they respond here, well, we will do this. So they've pre-planned all of that out. And that they have that playbook and routine or the choreography really clear in their mind so that they don't go into it having to react and respond to Sir Ben Ainsley's aggression, because that's what he'll want. If they go in that sort of situation, they'll get owned. So they need to really get their routines and playbooks sorted and to implement that and to have the ability to actually take the initiative as opposed to respond. What they want is at a minimum to get off even, to get clean and even off the line. And then they will have confidence in Team New Zealand that Taihoro, their boat, will have at least even and possibly a speed edge. So if you can get off the line clean, if you can manufacture that first cross in front, then you have the ability to close down the race. What's going to be much more difficult is if they're behind. With the boundaries in these modern America's Cup courses and how short the races are, I mean, they're around 20 minutes in length, it's really difficult to manufacture a pass if the opponent in front of you doesn't make any mistakes. So beyond the priority of the pre-start and the start and trying to just get your nose in front, they'll need to also have a playbook about how they, if they're behind, don't try and roll the dice and take a high risk early on and fall further behind, but just to keep it close, keep chipping away and look for the opportunity to manufacture a pass. So they know all this. The challenge, of course, is they haven't had the chance to implement it in quite some time. And as you pointed out in the round robins, it counted for nothing for them. So very different when the pressure's on. So composure will be a big focus for the Team New Zealand crew over this America's Cup series. Just for reference, Mark, on that difficulty in passing movements during the race, how often during the whole regatta have passes been successfully implemented by any of these boats? Well, and certainly in the finals, less and less so, and that's because the boats were so evenly matched. Interesting that Ineos Britannia and Luna Rossa Prata Pirelli are actually quite different boats. Design-wise, their foil package is different. Even where they position their sailors and foil flight controllers on the boat is different. And yet they were so incredibly even in terms of their boat speed across a wide range of conditions. So that's what really surprised me. But when you've got really even boat speed, as is tradition in match racing sailing, the start and the first cross is incredibly important. But it's different if you have speed differentials. So earlier in the comp, in the round robins, when we had greater differences in speed, then you did see a number of passes where a slower boat that was in front managed to get a good start, eventually comes under pressure, and the trailing boat, who's a little bit quicker, can crack them, and then when they get past them, they stretch. So Team New Zealand did that a couple of times in the round robin. It's still a boat speed race. So Team New Zealand has been busy, even though they're not race ready, they've been busy developing their boat further. They had old sails on during the round robin. They didn't have their final foil configuration. So they will be hoping and perhaps have some confidence that the package that they've developed is going to have an edge, and they will, if they can make that stick and they can get good starts and not end up getting owned by Sir Ben Ainsley in the pre-starts, then I think that's their best shot.
Team New Zealand against Ineos Britannia from next Sunday, New Zealand time, for the 37th America's Cup. Mark, love chatting sailing with you. Thanks so much for your expertise.
Pleasure, Piney. Thanks, mate.
No, thank you, mate. That's Mark Orams, Professor Mark Orams, with some real deep understanding of sailing, obviously. So it's Ineos Britannia up against Team New Zealand starting next Sunday morning, New Zealand time. Same format as the Louis Vuitton, a best of 13 series. So the first boat to claim 7 race wins will claim the America's Cup. First contested back in 1851, the 37th running of the America's Cup. Team New Zealand against Ineos Britannia. And as you heard Mark Orams say during that chat, Luna Rossa co-helmsman Jimmy Spittle, a larger-than-life personality in sailing circles, has announced his retirement from sailing.
This is definitely my last one as an athlete. I mean, I skippered my first team at 19 in 1999, and I've driven a boat in every cup up until now. And if you told me this is where the sport would be back then when I started, I mean, I probably would have driven you to the mental hospital myself.
So a slight correction, his retirement from America's Cup sailing. We may well see Jimmy Spittle do other sailing, but that's it for now anyway. And again, who knows? But of course, we'll always remember him for steering Oracle Team USA to that stunning victory over Team New Zealand back in 2013, coming from 8-1 down to win it 9-8. One of the great comebacks of all time in any sport. 26-3. When we come back, Wayne Goldsmith, our coaching guru, talking about end-of-season reviews. How, why, when, and other questions too when we come back on News Talk ZB.
The big issues on and off the field. Call 0800 80 1080. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine and GJ Gardner-Holmes. New Zealand's most trusted home builder. News Talk ZB.
Coming up 22 away from 3 every month or so, we get the benefit of the wisdom and expertise of coaching guru Wayne Goldsmith on a range of different coaching and wider sporting issues. Wayne, welcome in. I want to talk today about reviews, end-of-season reviews, end-of-Olympic campaign reviews, that sort of thing. You've done dozens and dozens of these. So where do you start, and what are the things that you look at?
Well, that's a really good question, Piney, because I'm in the middle of 2 or 3 now. I'm in the middle of 2 in Australian football codes and different codes, and a couple in Olympic sports. And I know when they ring me and they say, how would you go about doing a review? I always think of the Liam Neeson line from Taken, where he says, I've developed a very special set of skills that make me a nightmare for people like you, because what I say to people is, they say, what are you going to look at? And I say, everything and nothing. And I'm becoming very zen, I think, as I get older, because I think if you go and you start a review with a preconceived notion of saying, I think from a distance it looks like this, you end up only looking at one thing. Whereas quite often what's required is you come in and you've got to look at everything. And so I often say to people, look, I'll look at things like the culture and coaches and the players and your roster and your budget and facilities and, importantly, the interaction between all those things. So like I said, we look at everything and we look at nothing.
So then when you've established, a bit of understanding about the different parts of the organisation, the different parts of the campaign, players, coaches, culture, leadership, all those things you've mentioned and more, then what, Wayne?
Well, it's a matter of coming in and spending time talking to people about what their views are. Look, I actually say to clubs, the best time to do a review is about 6 weeks from the end of the year, because people are doing what they do. The danger in doing, and I find it all the time, Pioneers, I come in and I do an end-of-season review, and people's reflection and the stories they tell about what they think happened is very, very different to maybe what actually happened. So you've got to look at the data if there's data available. You've got to talk to people from different perspectives. And so you'll interview coaches, sports science, sports medicine staff, medical staff, management, players, of course, people around it, and develop an overall perspective of what may or may not be happening, because people's ability to tell a narrative of their own experience and their own contribution changes a lot at the end of the year. But you start to put everything together, and some of it is screaming. So, for example, you might go and do a rugby review and you might be looking at defence. Well, you can pull out so much data on tackles made, tackles missed. You can look at so much data on it, and that'll give you a bit of an insight into maybe the way that the defensive coach is working, or maybe their technical elements or the skill level of the players. So sometimes it's really easy because you've got data. Other times, things like leadership, communication, relationships, culture, they're hard to see, hard to measure, particularly at the end of the season. So a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. It is like putting a puzzle together to try and find the real truth. And, you know, that great phrase I use often is, it's no good coming up with a great solution to the wrong problem. So that quite often I'll go in and they'll say, what do you think? I'll say, I think it's a culture thing. And they go, thanks, Wayne, we're going to build a new gym. And it's got nothing to do with the culture. But because you can see a gym, you can buy a gym, you can build an extension to a part of the ground, because you can actually see those things. Quite often people will do that rather than address what the real problem might be.
You sent me a neat little, actually quite a few neat little sort of things as part of your notes for this particular segment. You talk here about the 3S model when you're looking at what's working and what's not. Things you need to sustain, stop, and start. Can you just unpack that a bit for us?
Yeah, I think in the end, all of the best reviews I do come down to a very simple concept, which is, what is it that we're doing that we should sustain, keep doing? What is it we're doing that's working? Because just because a team might have come 10th, it doesn't mean everything's wrong. I think what people make a mistake in reviews, Piney, they go, well, we came 10th, therefore everybody and everything's wrong, and let's throw it all out and start again. It's never really the case. There's always some things that are working, and maybe they're just not working in the right way, or maybe they don't have the right resourcing, or they're not being used at the right time, or there's some political roadblocks there. So I say to people, there's going to be something that's working. There'll be some things that you go, you know what, our defence is really good, our communication is great, the connection between the players and the coaches is great. All right, let's keep that. That's solid gold. And then there'll be some really obvious things that you should stop doing. So it'll really scream, because people are very good at identifying problems, much better than identifying things that are working and going well. So I'll say, guys, so these are the things we know that are impeding our progress and not helping us get better. We stop that. And then, of course, everybody learns. So the third thing is, so it's keep doing, stop doing, start doing, or sustain, stop and start. And then there's some things that you'll learn watching the better teams, by studying, by research, by reflecting, by looking at what you're doing. You'll go, you know what we learnt this year? We shouldn't do that. We should change this. We should add that. So when I get around to reporting it back to coaches and boards and executives, say, guys, keep it simple. this is what you're doing that's working, this is stuff that's not working, and here's some suggestions for how to make it better.
Do you need to challenge yourself or be ready to challenge yourself as an organisation? Because I'm sure you could do a very good review for somebody and present it to them, all your findings, all the data that backs it all up. But an organisation still has to be willing to be open to change, don't they?
Yeah, they've got to be. There's a great line I love is, when the student is ready, the teacher shall be found. I think when they're ready to learn, that it's quite easy. It's believe it or not, this job's a lot simpler than people think. Because if you've been around a little bit and you're open-minded and you spend time really listening to people, the problems are normally right in front of you. But there's blockages. Either you don't like them or you've got a political issue, a personality conflict. Quite often, if you're immersed in the environment, you don't see the obvious. And as a great friend of mine, Jackie, may she rest in peace, Jackie used to say to me, Goldie, you are the master of the bloody obvious. And I said, but Jack, that's what it is. There's most of the time, what's not working or the problems that are holding people back from realising their potential are really obvious. They're right in front of them, but they're blinded because of proximity. They're too close to them to actually see what's screaming out to someone independent. And that's good because that pays my mortgage. I like coming in and just pointing things out to people that they already know, Piney. I often say to people, I'm not particularly clever, and I'm really not. I'm not particularly clever. I'm not particularly brilliant. All I'm doing is pointing out what's right in front of you that you can't see. It's very rarely you'll come in and go, I've got a revolutionary breakthrough idea that you've never thought of. Most of the time you're pointing out things that they already know, but they just can't see them because they're too close to them.
Have you ever been in a situation where you've been commissioned to conduct a review and then somebody who's in charge at the organisation has said to you, hey, it'd be really good if you could actually find this, almost, I guess, trying to predetermine what you're going to find in your review?
Oh, mate, it happens more than I'd like to think about. But God, there was a funny story years ago. I got called by a CEO of one of the Melbourne-based AFL clubs. And I came in, we went through the terms of reference of the review, talked about, and he was passionate. And he talked about, we want to get better, we want to be competitive, we want to grow our fans, we want to be seen as having an exciting type of football. He's really excited. Anyway, I go back to my hotel that night, and my phone rings, and I picked it up. Hey, Wayne Goldsmith, there you go. And it's the chair of the board of the football club. And he said, Wayne, look, I've heard you're in town. I know you're here to do the review. I wonder if you've got time to catch up. And turns up, picks me up in a nice car, takes me out to the Melbourne water, the bayfront. And we're sitting there having a nice meal, just talking footy and performance and sport and kids and everything else. And he said, Wayne, I want to tell you something. He said, I want you to find this. And he gave me a little piece of paper. God, I wish I kept that piece of paper, Piney. And he gave me a little piece of paper, and on it, it had SAC CEO, remove head coach. And he looked me square in the eyes, a very well-known media identity as well. And he looked me square in the eyes and said, if you want to get paid, that's what you're going to find in your review.
Wow.
And because I was taken aback. I waffled a bit, I think, and said, oh, look, I want to do, he said, Wayne, do whatever you like. Look at everything, come up with whatever process you want. But if you don't find those things, you won't get paid. And it was a challenge, mate, because you try to live a life of ethics and business principles, and someone looks at you from a high profile and says, if you don't find this, you're not going to get paid. So I went away and I thought about it overnight and talked to a great friend of mine also in the business. And what we ended up doing is I did the review and I had an agreement that I would give it to the chairman to look at first, which I did. And as it turns out, he was pretty much on the money. But, yeah, you get that from time to time. Because I think, that great phrase, to someone with a hammer, every problem is a nail. If you get someone to do a review who's an attacking rugby coach, they're going to come and say, you know what, you guys don't attack as much as you should. Or if you get someone who's a a physiotherapist. They'll come in and go, you know what, you're not doing enough in the injury management space. Whereas the reality is it's never one thing. It's always a blend, an integration. It's several things that are happening concurrently. It's very rarely you walk in and you go, you know what, guys, change that one thing and I guarantee everything will be successful. And if anyone tells you that, you know that they're lying.
Just to bring it back to the concept of reviewing to finish, shouldn't reviewing be happening, sort of in an ongoing fashion, Wayne? You shouldn't have to wait till a point in time, be it at the end of the season or, as you suggested, 6 weeks from the end to review. Shouldn't you always be looking at your performance and reviewing what you're doing?
Yeah, that's really the bottom point, Piney. I should actually be out of business. Don't tell my wife I said that, but I should actually be out of business. I should have no work, because when you go into a really high-performing group, at the end of every training session, the coaches are sitting around having a coffee saying, hey, guys, what worked, what didn't work, and what should we change before the next session? They're living a continual review process, they live a continuous improvement culture. So after every session, after everything they do, they're continually saying, can we do better? And they've got a culture based on honesty where they can look at each other and say, you know what, Piney, I think you could have done that better. And then you, with trust and with connection with me, would go, really, Wayne? So instead of going, Wayne, you have no idea what you're doing, you would say, if in a culture that's working, a real performance culture, you would say, really, Wayne, what do you think I could do better? And you've got this open, sharing, transparent way of growing ideas, and you're in this continuous improvement culture. When you've got that, you're unstoppable. And that's what you would see walking into Penrith. That's what you would see walking into, I dare say, the Great All Blacks. That's what you'd see when you walk into an environment that's really clicking. They're living an environment of continuous improvement, and there's no need for knuckleheads like me.
Well, there always will be on this radio show. Wayne, your wisdom, your experience, your expertise is greatly appreciated by me and by our listeners as well. Always good to catch up. Let's do it again next month.
Can't wait, mate. Stay well.
You stay well too, Wayne. Wayne Goldsmith, their coaching guru and regular contributor on Weekend Sport. WGcoaching.com is his website. Heaps of great articles and pieces of advice on there and more about Wayne. But you can hear him here on Weekend Sport once a month or so, talking about a range of different issues. 8 away from 3. News Talk ZB.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.